Coming up on Kismet, one dating app for 48 hours and I lied about my age.
Gotten around, doll.
Welcome to the Kismet podcast, where we explore your world of post-divorce reinvention, connection, and your pursuit of passion. Join us as we navigate love's second act.
Wow.
You heard from my daughter, Gabi. As I launched this podcast, I wanted to get some general content out to you. And what you're about to hear is from Gabi, the expert on what it's like to be the child, an adult child, going through a late life, long-term marriage breakdown. What better person to talk to about that? And we're about to launch into a conversation that you will share about what our family was like before divorce, when we were all together, what it was like for her to navigate divorce and for me, and what it's like now, 5 years down the track, where there's been lots of healing and we're both thriving and experienced a lot of growth. So here we go. I hope you enjoy this conversation with my daughter, Gabi. Did you have lots of friends, parents separate when you're at high school? Yeah.
I feel like it's more spoken about now that we're older, but like people who will talk about their parents now who have younger siblings. They're like, yeah, I kind of know that my parents are semi just staying together because I've got these younger siblings who are still in school, and like,
right,
there's obviously a lot of issues. Like one of my like best friends, like her parents kind of hardly, like they definitely don't sleep in the same room, but like she like actively knows. She's like, yeah, they've kind of, without saying it, have been like, we're staying together because of like the younger siblings going through school, and it like obviously complicates things. So I do feel like it's a lot, like, yeah, I feel like I could think of like a few different friends that I have.
And even I know when HSE happens, like oftentimes HSE for the youngest child finished out of the HSE and like I think in John's year there were like 3 separations that day.
And I guess like our situation, like I was starting year 12. So like do you feel like you and Dad got divorced like it was a long time coming?
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, why couldn't, like we got through my older brothers, like it felt unfair in this way. So like, did you feel the same? Like I remember feeling pretty angry towards like, not, I guess like, yeah, I don't know, the situation. I was angry about the situation. So did you feel like it was like something you held on for, or how was your like experience in that?
Look, I was very mindful that you were both in your final years of school consecutively. So John had just finished year 12 and you were just starting year 12, and I was absolutely devastated. I had no idea. I didn't see it coming. And that's one of the big shocks about having to go back out into the world of dating is I was married, and like I suppose a lot of when you get married, it's for life. Especially the generation I grew up in. And so I would have done and begged. I would have done anything for the family breakdown not to have happened the way it happened. And I was really trying to deal with my own trauma in that. And I felt I'd certainly at the beginning, and you're at the beginning of year 12, and I know you had a lot of pressure on you. I was very mindful after maybe a month of being in a big dark black hole that I needed to pull myself out.
Yeah.
And I think as much as that wasn't my finest moment, I really like admire that you were able to survive those weeks. And we both survived that year, but that I was able to pull myself up. And if it weren't for you, I don't know that I would have done that. So I'm super grateful, although it was terrible when it was happening. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful. Terrible year in year 12. It would never have been a good time. I don't know if there is a good time. Certainly year 12's probably peak bad time. But it certainly forced me in a way. You know, I had a long dark night where I had to pull myself up, and I remember walking into your bedroom the next morning and just saying, I haven't been the best version of myself, and I will be. And I think that was an impetus that launched me into really protecting us, creating that haven. And I hope you felt supported through that year apart from
well,
that
that's what
little
I'm saying. I
blip at the
think, like,
beginning.
yeah, I did. Like, I think in hindsight, like, I feel like I was so tunnel vision on like what I was doing, which I think a bit of cognitive bias in that, like reframing it to be like, yeah, I just like had my head down. I was like, yeah, you just have to get through it. And maybe that I
think I
don't know,
learned
feel
something
a
from
little
that.
bit,
Put your head down and get through it. Yeah.
And you were studying and like you were kind of talking about maybe dropping out because it was all a bit too much. And I was like, no, like you've got to just
You can't be a 40-something, 50-year-old dropout.
And also
Yeah.
like just to have something that you can focus on that's not like there's no point in wallowing all day every day. You've got, as you're saying, exactly, like at some point you got to pull your
myself
socks up and
Yeah,
get on going.
Forgotten I was
And
studying.
I think like
and that you said to me you can't be an old age dropout.
No. And I also think like we had a subsequent conversation where like you were like, if I like, I don't know, that all happened and then I think it was kind of just like a hypothetical conversation. If like you had the opportunity to go and get back together with dad, like would you and should you? And I was like, it's taught me so much about like, because you were such a like good wife, I suppose. Like, not that I would know a thing about it, but like you were just like a good mom and a like good wife and great at all.
Yeah, I was devoted to our family.
Totally.
Like it was a great
like,
family.
But it's like the fact that you've come out of that and are like, you get to be more of a bit of a main character. Like you're like, it's so, I don't know, inspiring to me. Like I wouldn't want to like look at, I don't know, I wouldn't want you to do that like for me. And also I would hope that like if I was in the same situation, like I wouldn't just go back to a guy because of like that kind of situation. Have not worded that well at all. But
no, I think I'd really like to raise that. You asked about, you know, being in year 12 and it was just such a brutal time and I wouldn't suggest anyone break up when they're in year 12. And I know people who've lost, you know, family members, parents have died in year 12 and it's absolutely devastating.
Awful.
And this doesn't compare to that, but it's a massive shift in family balance. And I know families, I certainly know from years gone by, from friends and from your friends and from the schools that you went to, where you hear that, you know, the youngest child's finished HSC and then the family breaks down. And I think families do stay together, you know, for the kids, and then married couples are facing an empty nest and they're actually so different. They decide to divorce. I don't think it makes it any less devastating. It's still a family breakdown. And is there a good time? You know, I've seen people with really young kids separate, and I think for the kids it's still traumatic, but it becomes a new normal.
Yeah, right.
I think probably the worst, and I don't know necessarily the stats on this, but I think, you know, and it would be difficult to measure because you're looking at psychological and cognitive decline moving forward, but you're looking at teenagers who've got lots of hormones racing and they're looking at their parents as role models. And, you know, there's a lot of shift, as we've been talking about, when somebody divorces, when there's a family divorce. And I think as a teenager, it must be very, very difficult to navigate. And you were 18 when this first happened, and I think really difficult. But like you said, you had a lot to buckle down and do. You really focused on yourself. And I want to acknowledge there as well. I found that what you just said about being the main character. I'm, for the first time in my life, a main character, and that sounds like I'm boo-hooing for myself, and I'm not at all. I've had an incredible life, but I really feel like I've been able to be a great support to people, and now this is about me.
Yeah, I think like obviously there's never going to be a good time for that kind of thing to happen to anyone. I'm like very glad that John and I didn't have to like go between houses.
Oh my God, that
and
would
stuff.
have been like,
yeah, which like I know so many people that did, and like that's tricky. And
I'm sharing custody with dogs.
Yeah, with dogs,
and I'm
and it's hard
finding
enough.
it impossible. Like I can't even imagine with children. I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
I didn't go through that. But in saying that, you were older and there wasn't a shared custody. and I know you probably have more to say, but divorce at any age. I've seen younger families and the kids, it just becomes a new normal.
Yeah.
Then teenagers, tricky, really tricky. And then I have a friend whose parents divorced after 50 years and he was in his late 40s and he had to see his mum go back out dating and his dad. And he went through a lot of, I think you had conversations with him where, there was similar
Yeah, we would relate.
grievances.
Yeah, literally. It's so funny. I used to say, like, for the first few years especially, I was like, I don't identify as a child of divorce, like in the slightest.
Yes,
like, absolutely not.
did.
And like, I am like navigating those challenges for sure, but definitely in a way that can be a bit more independent. Because I've said to both you and Dad, but especially to Dad, it's like I have my own independent like thoughts and feelings and about our relationship, and it is hard to manage parents who don't necessarily get along. But
you have individual relationships with each member of the family and you've been able to cultivate that being older. I think that would be really hard to navigate, for somebody younger than, the age that you're at when we separate. It doesn't make it any better. I just think it would be harder to navigate everything emotionally because you don't necessarily have the skills or the support. Like you were able to articulate a lot of what you're going through with friends when you did decide to open up, because I know you didn't talk about it for a long time.
Yeah. I like actively didn't tell anyone when it was happening.
Because
I think I was just like, I just want school or like my friends to be a space where I don't have to talk about it. Like we were constantly talking about it. It was constantly on my mind. Okay, I'm just gonna like
give me
pretend
some
like
space.
this isn't happening.
Yeah, give me some space.
Which need a bit of therapy on that probably, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and then it's nice when you get to like tell friends but it was nice to not have to say anything about it. Like dating now for you, like functionality, looks, like you do look younger than you are, I would say.
Maybe.
Might be biased, but I'm pretty sure.
Maybe not.
Are we saying your age out there?
Yeah, I'm over 50. We're talking about grey divorce. So here I am.
Exactly.
And I think one of the points I'm trying to make is you can feel good. It doesn't matter, how you look. You can still feel great. And if you feel great and you are comfortable with who you are, I think confidence is so important. I dated a great guy. He's such a great guy. He's like really, really smart. He's had this really incredibly interesting, successful business, beautiful home, just an incredible, incredible guy, but he's not confident at all. And, in my mind, he should be. And then I've dated some other guys who don't have anywhere near his qualities. Like he's just such a kind, beautiful human being. And they've got all the confidence in the world. And some young guys are really confident and some guys my age aren't so confident. And it's not just men. I think men and women, when going out and getting back out there, a lot of it's to do with confidence. And it took me a long time to build my confidence up to the point where I am now, able to talk about the challenges. There are so many challenges, but you can overcome them and you can be supported by family, not necessarily as well as I'm being supported by you, but I think that these are important and valid conversations to have. And why shouldn't we have them?
Would you prefer to date someone younger than you or no?
I think it really depends on the connection. I think I started saying that before, but the confidence level's important. Is somebody really ready to get, especially if it's after a divorce, is somebody ready to get back out there? And I think from what I've experienced, there are steps that you go through to get there and to actually be ready to be healed enough. I mean, we're all bringing baggage at this stage and normally kids are part of that baggage. And so I went on a dating app last year and I was with a girlfriend who hadn't been dating for 8 years and I really encouraged her to go on a dating app. And although I have used dating apps and I've had great fun with them, I mean, look, they're as bad as toxic as kind of everyone says as well, like good and bad experiences with dating apps, but I've had some great experiences. And I was with my girlfriend and she hadn't dated for 8 years and I encouraged her to get onto this dating app. And she did. And then she said she wanted me to do it as well. I thought I'd just do one dating app for 48 hours and I lied about my age, which
Crazy girl.
yeah, crazy. Photos are the same. Pretty much everything was the same.
But just to chime in as well, like you could pass for 10 years younger. Like it's not like you're rocking up geriatric in a fucking wheelchair. Like you can. And like that just sucks.
That's like tick in my box. I'm not a geriatric.
Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just an interesting Yeah, go on.
So
Sorry.
I took 10 years off. But look, that's one thing about dating apps. Like women oftentimes lie about something, their looks. They might post photos that this is statistically true. Women post photos that don't necessarily represent exactly what they look like. And guys generally, statistically, lie about their height.
Take off a couple of inches for sure.
Yeah, when you see a dating app, you take off a few inches in height for a guy and women with age. So to get back to my story, I lied about my age. I met up with this guy. He was great. We hit it off really well. But then I had to obviously tell him that I was older. And, that was shocking and jarring for him. And if I was in his shoes, I would be shocked and jarred as well. So I subsequently deleted all dating apps.
You've been lied to about someone, haven't you?
Yeah. I think dating apps, there's a lot of lying that goes on. So I think it's about having a conversation. And if there is a connection with somebody and you have lied on a dating app profile, then, get to it straight away. Like let them know that, possibly before you meet. I think there's stages in dating apps too. You might connect on a dating app and before you meet up and get shocked, chat to them on the phone and see if there's a connection. There's stages to, I know you're.
But that's as well. It's like,
you do.
Especially if you're lying on an app, it's like, yeah, well, you're starting off on a lie. Like, if you really want to meet someone and like have a serious relationship from a dating app and you like have lied about something, like
lying's not a great place to start. Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, I have dated younger men and certainly open to it, but it's not something I'm actively seeking. I'm probably more seeking just a connection with somebody who is confident and, has similar value system and looks good.
Yeah, that's great.
As I said before.
Do you have like a lower limit or an upper limit, or are we? Mine for you personally, as I get older.
Yes.
But like, so I'm 23 and like one of my friends is dating like, who's also 23, is dating like a 32-year-old.
Right.
And like you go on a date with a 38-year-old and I'm like, well, those ages getting pretty close. Like it's getting a little bit too close. Like
it's kind of meeting in the middle somewhere.
We're meeting in the middle, which is like kind of weird for me. But I would say like I definitely wouldn't want you seeing anyone like under 35.
I don't want to be somebody's mummy, and that's a role I could easily slip into. So I think, 45 probably. I don't know. This isn't a show for me to find a date. We're just like
totally,
spitballing here.
Yeah.
I don't want to the right person is the right person. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, your concerns, and I hear you. So 35 is
perhaps. Okay. I don't know. You can I'll bet if you'd like.
Okay.
You run it by me.
You can go into matchmaking.
And I think your openness to talking to me about boundaries that we both have and is obviously really helpful. So I think over time I've just I guess I'm still learning to like it and be like, I think when we're out sometimes you are so open and I feel like sometimes you can say what I deem inappropriate at a dinner party or whatever. It's never and people love it and think it's great. And I'm just oh, that's still a little bit embarrassing for me. It's you're my mom, so that's your job to embarrass me. But I'm definitely learning as time goes on that it's a good thing, and literally who cares at the end of the day.
It gets back to communication, I think, too. If there's something that really does cross a boundary, then talk about it. Let's talk about it and figure it out. And it might not be a black and white answer, but we're walking through the muddling grey.
Don't know that saying, but yeah.
Yeah, that's just a saying I made up. We're just going in the grey. It's not black and white. It's just we're muddling our way through the grey.
Oh.
But, you can get through it. And I'm here to say to people to open up the conversation. You're not alone. There's as I said, it's a rising demographic. It's steadily inclining. So many more people are getting divorced after 50. And, there are resources out there. I can help. You don't have to, you're not in this alone.
Nice.
Including some of your friends and your friends' dads.
Yeah, Jesus. Because I suppose there's like a smaller pool, perhaps. It's like it's inevitable that your parents might date parents of your friends, which unfortunately has occurred for me, which I think it honestly has been like we like don't really fight. But yeah, like one of the biggest
You've smacked me down about
I'm
that.
claiming that. I'm claiming that I've like fully come to terms with it and stuff, but it's like mum started seeing one of my friend's parents and I was like, can you just not do this? Like, can you not? Like, we like would have fights and I was away and I would be like hanging up the phone on FaceTime, like piss off. Like, this is just like, I'm asking you to do this one thing, like anyone but him, like kind of situation. And it's also like, and I have like the self-awareness to be like, yeah, I don't really have like just let her live and let her like date who she wants to date. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I can imagine that would be tricky for you. It's like you like this person and it's like happens to me and my friend's dad. And it's like, that's really shit for me. And who am I to tell you like what to do? You're an adult. I'm not to be telling you what to do, obviously. But that is still like, yeah, it's a weird thing to now navigate. I'm like, how it's still weird for me. I'm not used to that type of situation.
I don't know that you ever will be. I don't think either of us will ever be used to it. It's a new normal. And like I said, I'm learning it as I go, navigating it as I go. Some bits I think I'm enjoying it. I didn't think I ever would, and I'm enjoying it. And to your point, very much didn't want to and don't want to introduce you to anyone until I feel like if that ever happens that I'm in a serious intimate relationship that they're meaningful. So we'll see how that goes. But I think 2 instances, your brother John had, and I'll go with his story first because that happened first.
Yeah, which, John had to deal with it before. We should have spoken to him about it. I haven't even thought about that. God, you've gotten around, doll.
I have. So randomly, it was one of his close friends.
Yeah.
And
oh my God, so true.
His dad, I hadn't met through school. They'd been in school together. I hadn't met. And he was an expat and I met him socially. We hit it off and we dated for a little while. Right from the outset, because we live in a small community and there's lots of gossip and we're both, new divorcees, I suppose, I was very mindful that both of our sons would find out through other people that we were even seen out together at a coffee shop, let's say, because it wasn't like we were holding hands on the street or anything like that.
God forbid.
We might have been seen out together. So I was very mindful of the boys hearing from us first. So after a couple of weeks, we thought, look, we are going out a bit more. We're being seen out a bit more. We should both sit our boys down. And we had a conversation about it. And I think communication's really key in all of this. And I think maybe at the beginning when you were talking about when you're 18, there was too much communication. I need to kind of shut it down. But I think now you're older and I think, communication in the right way is so important. So I spoke to this guy about how important it was for our boys. We set our boys down, obviously, independently, and had conversations with them that we had met and that we had just started to maybe go out and it wasn't anything serious, but if it did become more serious, we'd have that conversation. And were they both okay with that? Because if either of them weren't, it was fully going to not happen. We're the adults after all, surprisingly.
That's very nice of you.
And then in contrast, I went to your graduation and I met somebody, and American guys are really different to Australian guys. He was very, I know you're looking at me mockingly, but he very much pursued me. And I was like, this is.
But from the outset, I was like, please don't do that. And you were kind of like, oh, la, 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 like it's so fine, no harm, no foul, like, which is so fair.
Because I didn't think it was serious.
Yeah, no.
And it wasn't really.
It's fine, yeah.
But yeah, you did say from the outset, yeah. But look, he was pretty he pursued. And I was very much like, this affects our children.
Yeah.
And I'm not keen in complicating that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between some people who, separate that their children are adults or adult-ish, around 18 or over. And I think there's a lot of assumptions without communication. I know of many people who've had partners my age, who've had new partners, and their kids have just walked in with no introduction, no warning. And I think that would be really jarring. And that was just a random situation where I happened to meet somebody socially in a social situation. It just so happened to be that it was, the dad of one of your friends.
Yeah. Which again, it's like I feel like all kids are like, yeah, of course I want my like parents to be happy and like find a partner and date and like just live life. Like we're adults. It's like so yeah, of course you want your parents to be happy. And then so I came from that perspective being like, yeah, like of course. But then it's also like, ugh, like really? Do you like anyone else?
Like how could I have done that better? And how do you feel about it now?
Yeah, I think like I would talk to a lot of my friends about the situation and say like fair enough. I think also to you, we would kind of have these fights like over the phone and I was like, do what you want, but do not talk to me about it. I don't want to know, like I would prefer to just like be unaware of what's going on because then I don't want to like my friends doesn't know. It
compromises your friendship.
Yeah. I think, that definitely I felt like I just feel like there was a lot of opportunities where like I told you that I didn't feel like you were respecting my boundaries with it and you kind of like pulled back and were like, okay, yeah, I get it. But again, like you are an adult and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So
yeah, we did have a lot of conversations around it and some of them were heated. And I think I finally got the message, like just don't talk about that at all. It wasn't a serious
which makes me seem like a total bitch, but
and
like immature. Which again, I was like, I feel embarrassed that I'm like being so immature about this and like yelling at you on the phone.
No, I think they're genuine feelings and they're valid. And I didn't understand. I just thought it was like fun and it was kind of geographically impossible. So how serious could it be? And I wasn't sensitive. And certainly when it finally sank in after one particular conversation we had where you were like, this is a boundary and this is why it's so important to me. And you felt like you were being deceitful. And I certainly didn't want that for you. So then I completely shut it down and there was no communication. What, you're making
Yeah, no, face? You did. I think, I do feel like over time it was kind of just, and like that's, again, it's just like a learning experience for both of us. Never would have thought that I would have to be like yelling at you for like dating one of my friend's dads. But like, yeah, again, like
me neither.
It is just, totally. It is just like this learning curve for us, which I think we've been able to like
maybe
navigate.
Meeting kind of in the middle. And I think the key to that is communication. Like at the beginning, told you nothing, then probably told you too much, way too much.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then, just finding it's a tightrope. It's a full tightrope.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
If you'd said to me.
And like, we'll still, like, I'm sure there'll be.
Oh, yeah.
Lots.
When you get a new daddy.
Yeah.
or mummy.
And we have this like running joke where like, I'll be like literally in the street and be like, I won't like yell it out actually, but I'll be like, you want to date my mum?
Oh yeah, you have done that. You did do that.
Yeah, I'll roll down the car window. You want to date my mum?
Yeah, and that guy looked at us like we were.
Yeah, he laughed at us, but it's all in good fun.
Yeah, so I think it is a tightrope, and as you get older and establish your own life, and as I'm still figuring this all out. There's no right answers. I think for us, and I think for lots of people, communication is so key.
Yeah,
and I didn't listen well enough to your feelings around the boundaries that you had. And I think if I'd listened harder and asked more questions earlier on, I think also you were probably reticent to say anything to me because you are respectful of where I'm at. So at the beginning, even though I was asking questions, you weren't necessarily that keen to, you're just like, just shut it down. I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think we've met somewhere in the middle. So communication's key. So yeah, I wish I had this podcast maybe 5 years ago when this is all starting out, that, you know, to learn really particularly that I'm not alone, that there's an increasing demographic. This is like
rampant.
Yeah. People my age divorcing, and where do you go? How do you start? It's traumatic probably I'd say for most people. And even though celebrities say it's conscious uncoupling or we're just so grateful for the time we've had together, I get all of that. I'm so grateful for the time I had, you know, as a family, but it was still traumatic, really traumatic. And how do you navigate that? How do you navigate that in every aspect of your life? And there's support out there, and this podcast will hopefully give you some insights, let you know you're not alone, and places to go, areas to research, things to do to heal and to move forward and live your best life.
Sorry, I fully just
No, that was great.
I don't know why I spoke then.
Rampant.
Any other traumas you'd like to bring up? On the next episode of Kismet. My son, John.
That definitely, I guess, took a part of me that I didn't think I would ever lose.
Don't miss an episode. Hit subscribe where you're getting this. Follow our socials and ask any questions on my new website where we're building for like-minded people wanting to reconnect.